You're listening to a Meatsmith Harvest. This is the podcast that encourages and equips you to grow your home around the harvest. This Farmstead Meatsmith production is made possible by you. If you like it, please consider supporting our team by going to patreon.com/meatsmith and donating at a level you'd enjoy giving at. Your gift helps us increase the quality and quantity of all our free media education. Thank you, and happy harvesting. Hello, Meatsmiths. Welcome to another podcast.
We're live on that one?
We're live here, too. Yeah. We're live in all the places. Instagram and our private Facebook page, and now we're recording.
Okay.
So
Johnny Live is alive.
If there's anyone on Facebook right now that has any questions for us, people who are our members, we'd love to help tailor. We love your help in tailoring this podcast, which is kind of a general podcast. We're going to be talking about the very broad category of cooking, or cookery, as we tend to say.
Yes. We've had a lot of questions lately on just cooking things, or even we've heard anecdotes of people or farmers, I guess, who want us to help educate their customers on how to cook their perfectly raised meat. So we were talking about this a couple days ago over our own dinner table, and we're like, this is what we need to talk about next. So yeah, if there's anyone out there that has any questions, very broadly speaking, having to do with cooking their meat, we'd love to hear those questions. So yeah, that was sort of the inspiration behind this episode. Yeah.
But before we get into that real quick, I actually don't have a lot of announcements. I just kind of feel obligatorily to mention the membership and the family pig classes. So if you haven't stolen any of those opportunities, now would be a good time. Our fall classes are halfway filled almost. Yeah, there's 9 tickets left out of 16 available.
November and December. 2 sets of 3-day courses.
Yeah.
We're going to be harvested IPPs. IPPs.
Oh, that. I thought it was like short for some Latin phrase you were going to say.
No.
Like ipso. Sorry, I've been doing Latin.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about?
No.
Okay.
This is ipso, my learning of Latin. But we're going to have IPPs, which are Idaho Pastured pigs. I just picked up 6 of them, and they're out there right now. Yep. Cute little guys.
Just got them yesterday.
And we're going to harvest them. They're kind of cool because they are a unique attempt, I think, to really get a pig to graze and not be a cooney. Which I understand from both angles. Coonies are awesome as a backyard pig. They would be awesome as a commercial pig if people thought that fat was awesome. But people don't. And so they're a hard sell, even though I think they are worthy of every penny. And they're wonderful. They grow very slow and they stay small, and they're like 70% fat. Even if they're barely fed any grain at all. They just have this magical metabolism. They eat cellulose, which is not a pig thing. I mean, pigs sometimes do, they'll graze and stuff, but with that big rooter on the front of their face, they find it really irresistible to till up the ground and ruin nice pasture. Like coonies will maintain it if you manage them. Anyway, the Idaho pastured pig is a Cooney Berkshire Duroc Rye cross.
It's kind of a hot.
Can you say a cross if it's more than 2 things converging? I want to say hybrid, but I think that's not right either. It's a mix. It's a mutt of, and so it's a new attempt to get a pig that'll grow a little faster, be bigger frame, but still graze. So what they end up having is a very short snout, but a slightly larger frame. And they still grow real slow, but not nearly as slow as a coon. It'll be interesting.
It might be kind of like an American guinea hog as far as growth rate, would you say?
I guess it depends on the line. Maybe. I think American guinea hogs are smaller framed, but I see variation in American guinea hogs. Some get pretty big.
They can get big.
But I think there's less of a standard there, maybe more diverse lines. But no, IPPs do have bigger frames. They have a solid, stout leg bone. You know, their legs are wide, which is kind of a giveaway. Tiny little lard pigs have tiny little stilty, little tiny legs, little tiny feet. Even if their breadth is that of a normal pig or greater, they have little legs. So that's what we'll be harvesting. They remind me of the British breed standard, not the American, but the British breed standard for Berkshires. Whenever I see pictures of like Berkshire breed shows or pig shows, and they trot the Berkshire out, he's got forward-facing upright ears, a short snout, a dished forehead, and he is a fatty. And that is what a IPP looks like. There's another breed called the Middle White.
Okay.
The Brits got all crazy about, well, they really got into the breeds. Back when they couldn't grow enough pork to feed the island, much less export any, they exported genetics big time. And they just became the standard for so many livestock breeds. And there's a pig called a Middle White that looks a lot like an IPP. If it has an even shorter snout, it's really pug-nosed. And it's a white pig, and it's a little longer in the leg. It's not quite as fatty. I've never seen them in the States. I don't think there's any here.
Okay.
But interesting. For those who like that kind of thing.
Esoteric stuff. Yeah, so those are the classes coming up. And membership as well. I should mention, I did in our last podcast, we've created a new element to the membership program. If you're interested, but you're not quite sure, you want to commit, you'd like to taste it first, we have a 60-day free trial available.
Whoa.
So that's what you said last time.
No.
And then I think last time I said that was your idea.
Oh. I know. I don't know why it catches me every time.
Well, it's a great value.
Yeah.
It's a really...
I think I really value the membership. And so when
That's
it's
true.
like we're giving away some of it, I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
Not only is it your value, but it's also the community itself. I mean,
Yes.
I think you value what your members give you too.
Hugely.
It's a really neat thing.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We are actually amassing a knowledge base on foie gras.
That's right.
It's becoming significant on the membership. It's going to become a
movement.
We're starting a revolution.
I know.
A movement. And it's going to start in the Meatsmith membership.
Yeah, I agree.
With domestic foie gras.
Yeah.
So
more on that to come.
Better join the membership.
Yeah.
If you want to get into that. It's pretty neat. I've had a lot of questions answered about that whole process. What it is possible to do gavage in terms of breeds and traditions, methods, myths, all of them answered by our members who are equally as obsessed with strange things like the fatty livers of palmipeds. So it's great.
I've never heard that word before.
Yeah.
Palmipeds?
Yeah, Palmipede.
Yeah.
I think it means flat-footed. Palm.
Oh,
head.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could just say poultry, right?
So I don't know what it would be called to do the nails of a duck if you were to like polish them. If that would be a manicure or a pedicure if you're dealing with a palmiped. Maybe it's a palmipedicure. Sorry.
Okay.
But anyway.
Anyway, the promo code is 60-day trial if you want to get it on the membership.
But they're not the only ones that can fatten.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You mean ducks? They're not. No, right.
Or flat-footed waterfowl.
Okay.
Yes. Other
Could
livers are capable there.
Well, like geese, obviously.
Yeah.
What else do you mean?
There are many accounts. In fact, one of the earliest ones, I think it's Columella, but I'm starting to get my old sources mixed up, talks about cramming hens.
Really?
And I've seen it in hens. I would not say it's an enlarged liver.
Uh-huh.
Well, I don't know if I've seen the thing that Columella was talking about, but I have seen an extremely fatty liver in a hen, and it happens in laying hens.
Uh-huh.
They're nice and old. They've lived a luxurious life, eating super rich foods. And I don't know, they just get really good at picking out the corn from their mash or something.
Uh-huh.
And their livers, if anyone has slaughtered old laying hens, you've experienced this. The liver, when you eviscerate that bird, the liver just falls apart in your hand. It's really pale,
Yes.
really light.
Mm-hmm.
The insides are super oily. There's lots of schmaltz in their body cavity. They're just a healthy bird. And, you know, maybe they've stopped laying, so they're just accumulating all of these extra nutrients in their fat or something. But the liver falls apart because it is so fatty, so delicate.
Oh, not because it's old or decrepit.
No.
Okay.
It's just saturated or something. It's white, or not white, it's yellow.
Yeah.
Very yellowy. And the only way, and I think foie gras livers are the same way. That's why they do not eviscerate ducks that are slaughtered for their foies or their livers on the day of the kill. They chill the carcass's guts inside to harden the liver, which is full of oils that are pretty fragile at room or body temperature. So anyway, we'll get into that.
Okay.
I got a book about it. I got the tome about it.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode on that someday.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you fatten turkeys?
I haven't read about that, but it's interesting. Okay, so the Brits have always had a suspicion historically of foie gras, and only in their taste for haute cuisine French cooking have they engaged with it really, at least in the 19th century. But they've always been suspicious of it, and so it never made it into the British lexicon. So a lot of the recipes in English that are old for fatted liver are absent the nuances that a Frenchman might have. And so where the English have always, it's not fully incorporated into the culinary tradition, it's like recipes will say like, get a fatty liver of chicken or of duck. Or a French is like, what? These are two different things. You cannot, no.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Yeah.
And so, but nonetheless, the English farmer is making a distinction between a fatty chicken liver versus a non-fatty liver.
Okay.
I can't remember what that answers, but
it's kind of like an Eskimo having 20 different words for snow.
Yes.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah. We have like one.
Yeah, and I think there's 4 grades for foie gras, or 3.
Okay.
Or something. So anyway, I you don't know unless you try. So, and you can only try if you have a really good relation with your fowl, and they like you, and you manage them well, and then you can feed them lots of carbohydrates, lots of sugary, oily things, and see what happens. Like Desmond, one of our Meatsmith members, he has seen pigeons with super fat livers from living next to a feed mill.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Devin is an expert harvester of other animals that are outside of the domestic realm. Yeah.
Okay.
Which makes a lot of sense. I know, well, I've even seen it. I have seen engorged livers in ducks that have not been gavaged. Now, they wouldn't be foie gras livers. They're not pale, but they are paler, and they are twice the size of a normal liver. And it's like a season/age thing, and I do not know what causes it, but 1 week the duck will be 15 weeks old, standard size livers. 16 weeks, birds from the same clutch, the same round, we'll slaughter them. Their livers will be huge, almost twice the size. And it's not like it's a disorder. The ducks aren't unhealthy. They're still fat and beautiful. It's just huge livers this week. And I just don't know. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Gotta observe more. No gavage in that case.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm excited to learn more about that too.
Yeah.
And taste more about it too.
Slight hiatus, yeah.
Well, I thought we could talk about cookery. Mm-hmm. Let's say, I don't know how much we're going to be able to get through.
Yeah.
But I do know what I'd like to do is try to put time signatures like in our show notes and on YouTube and our website so that people could refer like, okay, I really want to learn how to cook a trotter, but they don't want to listen to this whole episode. They could just go straight to the trotter section.
Right.
Almost like a cookbook, but it's on a podcast.
Oh, cool.
So, and I don't know how much we can get through in an hour and a half to 2 hours. So we'll just take a stab at maybe talking about the pig parts, and maybe we'll do lamb next time or something.
Well, we could do all of it in 3 words.
That's true. Yeah. And let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Braising, pan frying, and roasting.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Meatsmith members, or anyone that's been to the class, it's like, it's got to be annoying at this point. But it keeps being true.
Yeah.
And I really landed on those 3 words, which represent 3 techniques, which are, you can consider them, they are the 3 recipes for meat cookery, period. Mm-hmm. That's it. Now, yes, we could do, well, no, let's not even get into nuances. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah.
That's it. Braising, pan frying, and roasting. And I found that so useful when I was learning how to cook meat.
Yeah.
And 10 years later, or whatever, 11, I still use the same exact principles. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when you're starting to like quiver on the edge of a universal paradigm. Like, it's true, okay?
Yeah.
It's in all the cookbooks. Any meat cookbook, every single recipe is some variation of these 3 techniques. Braising, pan frying, or roasting.
Yeah.
And when I would go to the farmer's market, it's really when I had to carve out these definitions in a way that people could employ them.
Right. Because someone would buy something from you and then they would just off the cuff say, oh yeah, how do I cook it?
Well, not necessarily that. It was more before that. They wouldn't even buy it.
Oh.
So because people are intimidated by meat cookery.
Yeah.
They are really intimidated by meat. Mm-hmm. It has this aura around it that is, it puts people off. They don't want to mess it up. They feel like one wrong move and you're going to mess it up. And that's not the case. There's actually lots of forgiveness. There's lots of room for error. With meat cookery, if you meet 2 conditions, and I think that they are freshness and quality. Mm-hmm. So if you buy meat fresh, it is effortlessly delicious. Mm-hmm. Almost effortless. Just don't mess it up like hugely and it'll be okay. It wants to be delicious. You're there to just like gently guide it into deliciousness. So salt it properly, don't burn it to a crisp. And it's hard to convey to people who don't cook fresh meat regularly just how easy it is. Just like it's hard for us to understand why recipes and cookbooks for meat are so long and involve so many ingredients. Because they're assuming you're getting supermarket meat or previously frozen meat. And so you have to, in a torturous, extractive way, like tease flavor out of these things. Because they're starting at such a low level. And so it's incomprehensible to me to like stuff a pork chop. I do not have time for that. And also why? But I totally get it. If you're used to buying, store-bought pork, even nice stuff, I have to say, you just got to do it. The proof is in the pudding. Fresh meat is so stinking good. It's so effortless. Particularly, conventional fare at the supermarket. It's it is a different animal, even if it's from the same species.
Sure.
It's a different thing. So when you have a pork chop, read the fine print. They're pumping it. They have like phosphates in it. They've pumped it. It's supposedly not cured, but to add weight and supposed juiciness. But the moment you start cooking it, it all runs out. And it gets even worse when you cook it to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. And yes, that is a completely foreign experience to a pork chop that we would cook from one of our pigs. Totally other. I can be downright negligent when I cook our own meat, and it'll be delicious. That's how simple it is.
Yeah.
To have fresh meat.
Yeah, it's almost comforting too to know that, well, even if in the extreme end, even if I actually ate this meat raw,
right,
it's okay.
That's a really good exercise.
So if it's undercooked, and I say that in air quotes, as long as it's juicy and warm, like it's still going to be delicious.
That's a really good exercise that neurotic people like me have to do. And I don't have this with meat cookery. I'm really confident, like no problem there. But in other areas of life, I am always aware of all the things that can go wrong.
Right.
I hold them all in my mind all the time, 100% of the time. It's a little nerve-wracking. But the one thing that helps me is to take these perceived disasters to their logical end.
Right.
Because usually I just react before I considered how bad things really could go. I just react, way before, this could happen.
Yeah.
But I need to think, well, what if Johnny fell 15 feet out of the tree? There's like 13 or 14 branches below him, so they would slow him down, and then he'd hit the ground. Maybe it'd hurt a little bit. He might fracture something, but maybe I could yell at him less. It's not 15 feet. It's like 25, 30 feet, to not climb trees so recklessly.
Sure.
And fall out. He does this. You saw this last thing. Johnny and Simon, they like to climb to the top of a cedar tree and purposefully fall out of it. Okay?
Yes, they're like racing down.
They race down.
And unless you know this is what's happening, you think your child is dying.
Yeah, they're falling. I mean, they're literally, they almost reach terminal velocity. And they're going down, and like the branches are, you're like, oh my gosh, it's over. It's going to hit that huge rock that is 3 feet from the bottom of the trunk of the tree. And then they catch themselves on the last branch. It's like this ballet falling out. It's unbelievable.
I know.
Anyway, speaking of neuroticism. It does help to follow those disasters out to the end. That's what I'm saying. So think when you come to cooking meat, you can really dispel your fears by interrogating them. So if you buy a beautiful fresh cut from the farmer's market, which you ought to do if you're not raising these animals in your backyard, which you also ought to do, then think, well, what's the worst case scenario? It'll be really rare. I'll undercook it. Or I will overcook it. And it'll be burnt and dry.
Chewy.
Yeah, it'll be chewy. And I would say that the realm of the spectrum of how much you're going to mistreat the meat is narrower than you think. You're not as dumb as you think. So there's that. If you undercook a pork chop from a farmer, it's going to be exactly where I like my pork chops. It's going to be, 137, 135 in the middle. The only time you wouldn't really want to do that with pork, for example, is if those pigs are fed a steady diet of animal waste, of the flesh of other animals, which most pork does not have in it. It's very rare. And even then, those organisms, specifically trichinosis, die at 137 degrees Fahrenheit, not 160, like we have been told. And so that's very rare. So yes, you might have a rare piece of meat, but if it is fresh and from a delicious animal, it's going to taste wonderful. And then even if you overcook it, this is an interesting one. So even, I know this is like almost taboo, especially for some people that follow us, but I don't think you absolutely destroy a piece of grilling meat, like a chop or a steak, if it's not totally pink. You can take it to medium and if you let it rest, it will still be juicy. Mm-hmm. And so overcooking is not as bad as you think. Mm-hmm. It's all right. Mm-hmm. Take it easy. Mm-hmm. If, however, it is a previously frozen thing, you pay dearly for even a little bit of overcookery.
Oh, I see.
You really do, because the water is not as bound in the meat, because the molecules have been frozen. They've cut a whole bunch of meat. They're not in the meat in the same way that they were in the fresh state. Mm-hmm. And so when you cook that previously frozen thing, more water tends to leave, more juices and blood and delicious things tend to leave the meat.
Got it.
And so you are kind of trying to be really sensitive and not overcook it so as to not turn it into a rubbery, dry thing. Mm-hmm. But if it is fresh, you don't pay so dearly for cooking it a little more than you want.
That's good to know.
It's not that bad. Mm-hmm. Take it easy.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Well, we'll talk about books maybe at the end of the episode, but I wanted to mention Julia Child that I'm getting into right now. Mm-hmm. She has this book, The Way to Cook, and I've just read the introduction, but it's in my stack of books officially, so I will make my way through it. But she reminded me of you a little bit because she wrote this book in 1989, and she says she kind of broke from convention as well when she decided not to list recipes by meat or by type. Like normally, you go beef, a beef chapter, a lamb chapter, chicken chapter, or whatever. She does her titles are still somewhat that way, but the way that you find the recipes, they're more categorized by the method of cooking.
Yeah.
For that very reason, I mean, I think she's writing to an American housewife population that is, like you said, just kind of intimidated by meat, especially post 1960s, 1950s, where the American housewife was just inundated with so much variety and possibility.
And the obligation to not cook.
Exactly.
That was a big part.
That's right.
She was expected to be bored by domesticity. Yeah.
That's right. That's one of our favorite lines.
So let's give her the microwave, the freezer, the instant meal, all these convenience things.
But at the same time, she has literally access to any ingredient in the entire world.
Yeah.
Because of the affluent society. Mm-hmm. So there's this odd conundrum. And Julia Child really picked up on this, I think. And she was trying to woo the American housewife back into that art. And kind of give her the prowess like we talk about. But anyway, that when I read that this morning, it reminded me of our approach, your approach.
By technique.
Yeah. So maybe we could...
cooking method, That's really that is so much more decisive than the actual variety of ingredients. I mean, I don't want to create a false dichotomy, I guess, or a false opposition. But when it comes down to it, when the rubber meets the road, literally like on daily cooking, when we're trying to feed our family, my confidence in the success of the meal comes from the cooking method, not the particular ingredients. Yeah. Now, keeping in mind, we only ever cook fresh, home-raised meat. So that's the other thing that is utterly essential. But so we just take that for granted because that is all we do. Yeah.
Excuse me.
But it's a huge relief to not be like, geez, how do I get new flavor in here? I know, let's do a, pecan grapefruit skin, some crazy...
Cayenne pepper.
Yeah, you don't have to lemongrass, Thai, Texas barbecue. You don't have to get all crazy with your spices. If you can braise, pan fry, and roast, you're good. It will be delicious. And then you're kind of liberated to regard all these other seasonings or spices, and I would even say accompaniments, as icing on the cake. Like, they're not going to make or break the meal, is what I'm saying. If you have the meat and you cook it well by either braising, pan frying, or roasting, you're free to just kind of explore a little bit.
Yeah.
Knowing that even, your mistakes with everything after the braising, the pan frying, and roasting aren't going to be that decisive.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that bad.
Yeah. That's what Julia Child says, a roast is a roast is a roast. A stew is a stew is a stew. This is what she said in her introduction,
Yeah.
Which kind of seems like, kind of an athlete. That's, you want to choose those words carefully, but.
Yeah.
And she definitely talks, so she gives, the basic recipes, and then she definitely says once you get a few times under your belt, then try to do the variations, and of each thing.
And I would say we actually have to define braising, pan frying, and roasting.
Yeah.
And we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
But I think there's another attitudinal shift that we had, maybe unconsciously, maybe consciously, but it is a receptivity to what the results of your cooking are. Mm-hmm. And you understand this particularly if you are raising the meat or you've shelled out extra money for a locally raised and then piece of meat that you purchased fresh, and those are like 2 or 3 extra steps beyond.
Yeah.
And so there should be there can be a very helpful gratitude that is your starting place, rather than an intention of exactly how it's going to turn out. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why recipes they mess with your psychology a little bit. You see it as an equation. And your goal is to get to the equal sign, the sum at the end. And if I do this plus that, I'll get exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you know you want that? You don't know you want that.
Yeah.
That might be wrong. Why not receive what happens when you cook the perfect ingredient? Mm-hmm. Or, just the well-raised pig pork shoulder, or, whatever it may be. The grass, the pastured duck. Mm-hmm. Just receive it. Don't burn it. And then whatever the result is, that's actually good.
There you go.
It's not, even if it doesn't measure up to what exactly you were thinking. Mm-hmm. And that kind of receptivity, that openness. Mm-hmm. And for me, it takes the form of, I want to see what this meat tastes like. That's actually my goal for every dish. Mm-hmm. I want to know what this duck, what this pig in that forest right there tastes like. Mm-hmm. So whatever that is, I'm all into that.
Yeah.
I want that.
That's a great summation. Yeah. It's true for anything in life, really.
Yeah.
To do something out of fear or obligation or control versus doing something out of gratitude, love, receptivity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to do, though, with food for a lot of people because it takes a retraining in our brain.
It does, especially since I think that the proliferation of options at the grocery store and the commodification of food, which I don't deride as a whole, parenthetically mention that, but all of that can serve to make you think that where the rubber meets the road is with my preferences being gratified, what I want being affirmed, rather than, going on the much more entertaining but fulfilling venture of having your tastes elevated by what is produced in a true, good, and beautiful way. That is a much more fun thing, and it takes the burden off of you.
Yes.
I mean,
it's more like you getting out of the way.
Yeah.
And letting it happen, and you're kind of the facilitator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's simpler because, your yolks are yellow. And your burdens are light. Right? It's
great.
The principle. Your
That's
yolks
awesome.
are orange, I guess. They're golden.
Yeah. They're almost red.
Yeah.
How many people do you know you would say truly share your back to the land values? Or your passion for home-scale craft meat curing? Or simply love the multifaceted beauty of a good meal as obsessively as you do? Maybe a handful? At farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we've created an online community of hundreds of omnivores from around the world and a platform for them to learn from and inspire one another. In addition to our major semi-annual hands-on educational event, The Family Pig, here at our Pacific Northwest homestead, over at farmsteadmeatsmith.com, we host a purely digital membership program with an archive of film and textual resources years deep now, for you to dive deeper into your food journey with. And both our classes and online program include access to our private community Facebook page for your continued education and fellowship. We've been told that our classes are life-changing and the membership program unparalleled in quality and quantity. To get a taste of our education, search farmsteadmeatsmith.com and our YouTube channel for our free films, conversations, and downloads. Explore how we and other meatsmiths across the globe may best come alongside you, putting the knife in your hand, article by article, and comment thread by comment thread, and can support you in building your home around the harvest. Please head to farmsteadmeatsmith.com today. Cool. Well, let's talk about...
Should we define braising, pan frying, and roasting really quick?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a simple thing, and it is a syllogism. It is one of those realms where when we can apply logic in an abstract form and really get a key to unlock the entire offering of a four-legged or two-legged and winged beast. Mm-hmm. There's no part of any animal that is outside your ability to cook it if you know how to braise, pan fry, and roast. Every single part. There is not a single cut on an animal that you would be like, whoa, I don't know. I've never done a sirloin roast before. Or a foot? I don't know how to do duck feet. It's like, yes, you do. If you can braise, pan fry, and roast, you know how to do it. So braising is, I think it's moist heat. That's what it is. So a pot, heavy lid, piece of meat, some form of liquid in the pot, ideally stock or water or milk or stock and a little bit of wine, which is kind of ideal. But whatever, anything, liquid. You want to have liquid in the pot and you're slowly simmering it. And to just like use it in the most general sense possible, in my brain, it's easy to think of like, that's a stew, that's a soup. Like I just put all moist heat in that category of braising when it comes to meat cookery. And that is the low temperature, bubbling application of moist heat to a tougher cut. Now you could do it with a tender cut and that would be awesome. But it's a particularly salubrious solution to a beef shank, to an old laying hen, to make things that if you were to roast them hot and fast, they would be absolutely unchewable. They'd be so tough. But a braise will melt them into something far more flavorful, by the way, than even a young roasted thing. So that's braising. And then pan frying is, everybody knows, it's hot and fast, direct heat. So skillet, oil, meat, brown it on both sides, sear it and be done. That's pan frying. That's what I mean by frying, I guess, when we're talking about this. Hot, fast, direct heat. And then roasting is the application of dry heat in an oven. That's how I think of it.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, would fire cookery be a roasting?
I was just going to go there too.
Oh. Wow.
Sorry. Apologize to everyone. So grilling, when it comes to open fire cookery, you can do braising, pan frying, and roasting.
Oh, okay.
With open fire cookery.
So you wouldn't lump that as a fourth category?
I wouldn't.
But it's not wholly under the third category of roasting either.
No.
You can do any of these with fire. Okay. I
would.
Neat. That's cool.
If you want to keep the purity of the syllogism, I would say that it can do all of them. If you know how to manage open fire cookery.
Yeah. Which is its own skill.
Yeah, which I think we've talked about before. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Again, if you think in terms of, let's see, I could do moist heat at a lower temperature for a long time. What would that look like in open fire cookery? I know. Let's wrap it in caul fat. Or let's lard it with strips of back fat. That's kind of like braising.
Okay.
You're cooking something at a low temperature and the fat is melting, becoming a hot oil and slowly braising the meat in a way. But you could also just put a pot over the fire and put liquid in it. Yeah. So anyway. Okay. And then obviously hot and fast and dry heat with roasting is very easy to achieve with an open fire. But then to cover roasting, that's just dry heat in an oven most commonly. So roasting a chicken, uncovered, you want it to be dry. You want it to brown the skin on the outside. Usually there's a period of higher heat to brown things and then lower heat to cook it through. And we don't have to get exact with temperatures, literally just low, medium, and high. So that's what I think of. You know, low is like 275 and medium is 350 and high is 450 or something. And that's roasting, dry roasting. So those three methods, you can do combinations of them. You can use them interchangeably with many things. So like you can braise a really tender young chicken. It'll be absolutely delicious. You can roast a tender young chicken. It will be delicious. You could even actually cook it directly. You can pan fry a tender young chicken if you cut it all up, and part it out. So the tender things, basically you can cook all three ways. The unique facet that each cooking method brings is how to deal with trickier things. So leanness is kind of tricky because if a piece of meat is lean, meaning it doesn't have a lot of fat on it, it's prone to be dry. It can become dry. If a piece of meat is from an older animal or from a part of the four-legged beast that is used with great frequency, it will be tough. So it needs to be broken down over a longer, lower heat. And if it's not going to be dry, it should probably be a moist heat. And that's where braising comes in. To deal with the lean, you just need to add fat. Yeah. That's really the key. The classic example of leanness that can be tricky is the round of a beef cow. So, top round, bottom round, silver side, London broil, all these different names for the same thing, which is the lean and tough musculature from the back leg of a cow. Right. It is not only lean, but it's also tough because it's used every day to bear the cow's weight and to take every step. So that stuff is, if you just pan fry it, it can be dry and even a little chewy. So there's a couple ways to counter that in the kitchen. And one is to super rare. You just sear it. Serve it super rare and it stays juicy and it's wonderful. And then how you cut it, you need to have sharp knives. Slice it real thin, that makes it eminently chewable. And then larding is another thing that we don't do, where you actually inject noodles of the back fat of a pig into a lean cut of meat, or you wrap it in strips of back fat or in caul fat and you roast it in the oven. Wonderful. That will work really well because the fat will melt and help keep the meat moist as it cooks. So reason number 9,000 to raise a fat little pig in your backyard. Yeah. So that you can lard your roasts. Yeah. In fact, I love that. I feel like that is the most essential gift of a pig to pretty much every culinary tradition, because it even jumps into non-pig eating culinary traditions. Yeah. Okay, this is crazy. So the word lard, the first use that we have of it in English is a verb, not a noun.
Oh, right.
Just saying.
To lard.
It's to lard.
Right.
To lard or not to lard. That is, well, it's to lard. Always let lard, maybe, I guess. Yeah. And so it's a verb. It's an action. It's something you do. Yeah.
The larder.
Yeah. And then that word extends to all these other things. The larder, where you would be storing things in rendered lard in your confit pots. You cook pieces of meat in fat, put it in the cool larder, the fat solidifies, and it's preserved for months and months, even a couple of years, and tastes better and better. The larder. So even, vegetables are placed in the larder. Right. And then even the act of injecting flavorsome noodles of something into something else, even if it's not lard that you're injecting, is called larding. I just read an old recipe where injecting strips, little pinky finger strips of truffles into foie gras is larding. You want to lard the foie with, strips of truffle.
That's how you know it's a thing.
Yeah, especially since foie gras is Jewish.
Oh.
They don't be eating the pig.
That's right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And not even the fat of a beef. So
that's right.
Yeah, in kosher traditions, but they need fat.
But they need fat. Yeah.
So what do? You fatten the poultry. Mm-hmm. And you still need to lard your foie gras with truffles. So I just thought that was crazy. That word appeared in that context.
That is cool. Yeah.
But anyway, man, that was so circuitous. Those are the 3 recipes: braising, pan frying, and roasting.
Yeah.
Those 3 methods. There's nothing outside of that. Every other approach to cooking meat, if it seems like it's outside of it, it's actually just a combination of 2 or something. They're doing a little mismatch, you might actually simmer something. You might braise something for a little bit and then roast it.
Yeah, that happens a lot, actually.
Yeah, you do that with a ham.
Because you break something down, and then but you still want to get the crispiness.
Yeah.
You do trotters that way. You do.
Yeah. Or
lots of stuff.
You brown something first. You pan fry it, and then you braise it.
That's right.
Because you want to get the brown caramelized flavors in the braise.
That's right.
So there's lots of flexibility, but you can, if you know how to braise, pan fry, and roast, you can confidently proceed to purchase any cut of meat. And just know that whatever cut it is, if it is on the tougher end, because it's used frequently, so we're basically talking everything but the loins,
right?
The 2 tender muscles running down the back of all quadrupeds. You want to braise those or roast it very slow, covered and wrapped or injected with fat. So it is actually being braised in its own oil, oil contributed by the fat you have wrapped there about. And so that's how you would determine. But the tender stuff can be pan fried only, hot and fast.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It. After 10 years, and we cook everything, every single part of the pig. I've cooked it all. I've eaten it all.
Yeah.
Those are still the 3 recipes. They are the ones. And and when I say get good at those, I literally just get good at pan frying, at getting that good brown crust. Go through whoa, that was too hot. We filled the house with, the smoke of the butter that I have way too, burned.
Yeah.
Go through all of that and that wasn't quite hot enough. This skillet does it just right. So really ace your frying, and your braising, and I say the other element to bring in is, to learn how to salt everything.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So that's as simple as freeing the salt from all the salt shakers and putting it where it belongs, enthroned in a ramekin on your kitchen counter, perpetually full and always available. And you always apply it by hand, and then everything will be delicious. You're done.
Yeah.
You've got it.
Yeah.
You know how to cook all meat. Okay,
well, so I think of braising, pan frying, roasting as the x-axis of a grid.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in this category, this, or there's some overlap.
Yeah.
Okay, but on the y-axis, the thing that will help you, and I've heard you talk about this, is the toughness versus and the fat content. So what are if you can answer those in your mind, and you have to know just a bit about the quadruped itself.
Yeah, the four-legged beast.
The nature of how that animal walks. Then that will actually tell you. You can put in the slots then, like the shoulder. What is it? Is it tough or is it tender? And is it lean or is it fatty? Right. Then you know which box it can go in. Right. As far as braising, pan frying, or roasting. So talk about that.
Okay, yeah. I was going to go there, but sometimes when I do, people get cross-eyed. But I think you just expressed it so much better than I have. But that's how I know what to braise or pan fry or roast. Right. Bracketing off for a second that for some things, like, it doesn't matter. Like a young duck. Yeah. You could braise, pan fry, or roast it. It'll be awesome. So some things are so tender, just do everything. But how do you know what to braise, pan fry, or roast? And then to figure that out, you need to know, well, is it tough? Is it tender? Is it fatty? Or is it lean? How do you know it's tough or tender? Think about the way your dog walks. Yeah. What muscles is it using all the time? Those are the tough ones. And you can deduce that just by, well, it's got these 4 legs. And every time he takes a step, he's using those muscles. They are laced with fascia and collagen and ligaments and tendons, all of which are very tough, meaning hard to chew. And so you have to melt them into a chewable state before you can enjoy that meat. So how do you melt them? You braise them, low and slow. So dog leg should be braised.
Maybe I won't use that one as an Instagram post.
Yeah. Well, below the haunch, actually. Yeah. Dog hock. You might be able to roast a dog leg. Sorry.
Especially right now while we're having some crazy Instagram.
Yeah, past 5 days, we have been mobbed by the animal rights activists. Yeah. Anywho, and I just gave a recipe for dog leg.
I know. No, you didn't.
No. A method. It's method.
Yes.
Let's keep our terms straight here. You can cook any piece of dog. But that's how you tell what to braise, pan fry, roast. Is it tough or tender? And then is it fat or lean? Because if something is fatty, fat is forgiveness all the way across the board. Like, I don't care if you're going to braise, pan fry, roast, it'll be awesome if it's got fat on it. Because that is really... Is it the key? Yeah, it's probably the key to juiciness. It's there, the juice. It's going to be juicy and wonderful. It won't be dry. Excuse me. Whereas if it's lean, it's helpful to know that the longer you cook it, the drier it will become. So lean things like to be rare. It's not a bad idea to do that. Okay. As a general rule, that's why the lean and the tough, when you encounter those in one piece of meat, that's tricky. You actually want to add fat. So even if you're braising a lean, tough thing, like a lamb shank, that is lean and it is tough. You want some fat in that braising liquid. Cube up some of your home cured bacon, or guanciale, or pancetta, or lardo. Put it in there. So you want some fat in there. Yeah.
I'm making a grid right now.
Are you really?
Yeah, but go ahead, keep talking. I'm going to run it past you before I show it on the screen.
No, that's great.
I can't help it.
Yeah. And so, those are the questions. That's how you decide what you're going to braise, pan fry, or roast. Is it tough or fatty?
Well, because I'm kind of thinking, actually, tough or tender? I think I said it wrong with my X and Y axis. I think that the X or whatever, one of the axes is tough or tender.
Yes.
And then the other axis is fatty or lean. Right. And then, like, I've created this right here. Okay. So, just like that. Yeah. And then what we're going to do is in these boxes, we're going to put either...
braise, pan fry, or roast.
Exactly.
Nice.
See how we work together? Yeah. Okay. So I'll just sit here and I'll just throw things out at you and maybe let me know off the cuff how you would cook it. Okay. Okay, so shoulder of pork.
Shoulder of pork. When you look at a shoulder of pork.
Yeah.
slaughtered by me.
Uh-huh.
And even not, fortunately, shoulder pork is pretty good this way, usually. Although I shouldn't talk because I haven't bought meat in a supermarket, pork, for over a decade. But when I look at a shoulder of pork, it's got a huge fat cap on it. If it's our pig, it's got 2 inches of fat on it and skin. And not only that, when you look in the meat, it's got fat separating individual muscles. And then when you look in those muscles, it's marbled.
That's right.
So we're talking major fatitude all throughout the meat. So we can say safely this is a fatty cut. And then you do, well, is it tough or tender? Well, it's from the shoulder. What's the shoulder doing? It's articulating the front leg. And pigs are no slouches. They can run. They can leap gloriously.
Yeah.
They use their shoulder muscles to drive their humongous head that weighs like 17 pounds through compacted earth as if it were sand effortlessly. So I'm going to go with tough. That shoulder is tough. So this is why I don't like it when you go to restaurants and they're like pan-seared Boston butt. It's like, what are you thinking? Sometimes it works, you know. Sometimes it's like, if I cut around all the fascia, but it just seems a little silly to me. I've seen it more than once. I don't know what that is. They're trying to get a high price steak out of a shoulder that they bought for much less, I guess. I don't know. Don't do that. So it's tough and it's fatty. So for me, that means I'm going to add even more fat. I'm going to anoint it with olive oil on the outside. I'll score the skin and I'll just rub it with salt. This is my super quick, easy version. I'm going to give super quick, easy versions for all of this because that's just how we cook now. I don't have contemplative silence in the kitchen to come up with anything more. But it's okay. Because our meat is fresh. So it's already delicious. The battle is won. It's done. Before I finish this recipe, I should say those are the most decisive ingredients in any recipe. It is the quality of the pork and its freshness. That's it. If those are in line, it's done. You're done. It's delicious already. That's 90% of the work. Okay, so this is a tough and fatty cut. So you're going to want to put that in a low oven. You could braise it. You could put it in a pot, pour in half a bottle of wine, quart or two, probably 2 quarts of stock, carrots, onions, celery. Turn on the heat, put the lid on, but cock it a little bit. And you could braise it, and that would be delicious. And it wouldn't take long, you know, just like a 2-hour braise. That would be delicious. And then it'd be pulled pork. With this nice unctuous sauce. And you could just bring that to the table with tongs. And you're just pulling out pieces of meat and a ladle for the juice. And you just put that on a bed of rice on everyone's plate with some meat. Done. Awesome. That would be great. Or, because this is a fatty, tough cut that is infinitely flexible, you could also roast it.
Kind of a low roast.
Slow roast. And it is never going to dry out because it has so much fat. So you would put it in your oven at 300 degrees. Again, anointed with the oil of the olive and rubbed with salt. Score the skin. And 300 degrees in a deep dished roasting pan because a lot of fat's going to melt. And let it go for 3 hours. You can even accidentally forget about it for 2 more. Whoops. You know, and it's okay because it's so fatty. Even if it's kind of black on the outside when you pull it out, that's just that's the burnt end. That's good stuff. Don't worry about that. It's still fall apart, juicy in the middle. And that crust is quite nice. Oh, that's a cat. We have a cat yelling at us.
I was wondering if it was a child.
I know, an echo of a wailing child off in the distance.
No, just our starved cat.
Just our starving cat. His sister is eating a chipmunk right now. I can see it. I don't know what he's doing. Not hunting.
And some are our domestic cats. They're a little skinny.
Riette's got no problem with it. She just hunts. She's good. Anyway, Jumbly, he needs to pick up his game a little bit. So we're roasting this thing in the oven, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And 3 hours, whoops, forgot about it. It's been in there for 5 hours. It's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if you wanted, so that would be good. Just pull it out, let it rest for, so I forgot to mention, an essential part of roasting, the roasting paradigm method is the rest.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That is a key part of that recipe is the rest.
You don't want to get impatient.
If we're doing like a nice big 5-pound Boston shoulder roast, let that thing rest for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Minimum when you pull it out of the oven.
Yeah.
So you let it rest, and then again, we use tongs a lot. I have a cutting board with gutters routed into the perimeter for the they're not big enough, but whatever. Direction of the fat flow. But I do like to put things on a wood cutting board. So we bring a wood cutting board to the table and we carve meat on the table.
Yeah.
This is what we should all do. And I really want a meat board that is dished, like the old-fashioned medieval meat boards. So because you can't channel it away, you're gonna like pour it off the end into onto the table. So we need a meat board. It's made of wood, so it's not dulling your knives. And it's catching all the juices because obviously you want all of those. That's your dripping.
So it's flat on the bottom, though, right?
Yeah, so it sits securely, but the sides are dished.
Yeah. There's got to be someone that
makes got big old handles. I know. I could carve it out of madrone, but I can't because I don't have any time to do that.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yeah.
So then again, just pull it off. The skin will be crisped. And you'll be able to pick off chips of skin. So each person gets pulled pork with a slightly burnt end and a chip of skin. It's just stupid delicious. This recipe, by the way, you can find on the Anatomy of Thrift video for side butchery.
That's right.
On the YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
That we made years ago.
Yeah.
Super delicious.
It's beautifully done, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make it, we do this a lot. You can incorporate the rest of the meal into the meat cookery, into the braise or the pan fry or the roast. So in the case of this roast, 30 minutes before you're going to take it out of the oven and give it its 40-minute rest, throw in a bunch of potatoes or
in the
something.
Fat when it's
in the fat, like around the meat.
Yeah.
And you will have cone feed potatoes because that's how much fat is going to be in there. It's going to be 1.5 inches of lard rendering from that pork shoulder. Use it as a cooking medium.
Onions and Brussels sprouts.
Yeah,
anything
we've
can
done.
Go in.
Yeah, we've done everything in there. Any root vegetables. You could even do, beets and celeriac.
Oh yes,
anything.
Oh yeah, fennel.
Yeah.
Really.
Go to town.
Yeah.
Get a whole bulb of garlic and cut it in half.
Yeah.
Put the whole thing. Not a clove, like the cluster, the bulb.
The bulb.
The whole doodly bob. Cut it in half and just put it in there. So good.
Okay, let's do something really different then. Okay, so I'm going by my little thing here. I've got fatty and tough. You low roast or you braise it. Does that make sense?
Fatty, tough.
If it's fatty and tough, like the shoulder.
That's right, yeah.
And,
it's hard to think of when you would pan fry it. You might be able to get away with it if it's a low, slow pan fry because there is so much fat. I've actually done that. That does work.
Oh, wait, say that again.
Kind of takes forever. It's kind of silly, so you wouldn't really do it, but it's kind of fun also.
Okay.
You could slowly pan fry something because there's so much fat. Yeah,
on
a fatty cut.
If it's thin enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it'd have to be thin.
So maybe like a shoulder steak.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, or a super fatty sirloin chop. But wait, no, I don't really ever do that. It doesn't make sense.
Let's just keep it simple.
All right, sorry.
Okay.
Don't make the exceptions a rule. There's too many exceptions.
Yeah. This conversation will be continued in a forthcoming Part 2 episode. Thanks for listening, and peace be with you.